The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey, nice to have you with us. It's time for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers and editors and reporters and journalists and filmmakers and photographers and artists. And I say that advisedly because our second segment today, we're going to talk to a very popular City Island artist who has some really fantastic new work. But to get the program started, we're going to bring back, I don't want to say an old friend, but a friend. Rebecca Lewis, Rebecca C. Lewis is how you read her byline on City and State magazine. Nice to have you back with us, Rebecca.
It's nice to be back. It's exciting time.
Exciting times. I was thinking this is must be a very busy and frankly exciting time for City and State journalists. You've got the deposement of a very powerful governor and now a new governor. Let's just talk about that directly. You wrote about Kathy Hochul being the new governor. What are your general thoughts now about the task in front of her and how well she's prepared to undertake that task or those tasks?
Well, there are many tasks ahead of her as she comes into the office just a couple days now. We have an ongoing impeachment investigation that is, was put on the back burner, was said it was going to end when he resigned, but is back on. We have, obviously, the Delta variant of the coronavirus. We have the end of the eviction moratorium and rent relief that is not getting out there either. Not to mention any of the other things that are going on, budget, environment, the list is endless. She comes in with, a fair amount of experience, comes from local government, worked her way up, was in Congress, has been lieutenant governor for the past, almost 2 terms for former Governor Cuomo, has been all over the state. Doesn't seem like she's planning to stop that anytime soon. If her recent schedule of appearances is any indication, she's been all over the state even now. But she's promised change, she's promised accountability, transparency, and it's a big tonal shift, but we're still kind of have to wait and see what that looks like. Does she make good on those promises?
One of the tasks is going to be because now there are I don't want to say now because it's been this way, 3 Democratic leaders in the state. Do you have a sense that the 2 leaders of the Senate and the House are ready to, the Assembly, not the House, are ready to embrace her, and the members, at least the Democratic members, are ready to welcome her and kind of get on board for whatever the new government and the new administration has?
No, is from everything that they've been saying so far publicly, they seem to be excited. I think Speaker Hasty said he's never been happier to be in the minority, given that we now have 2 women and 1 man in a room as opposed to 3 men in a room.
That's right.
So they are looking forward to a more collaborative governor as she's promised, and even Republicans are hoping for a change in tone. They're not all writing her off immediately. They are, hopeful that there will be more collaboration, that maybe there will be, a different tone, more talking in Albany. I think everyone's looking forward to see what she has to offer, what she's going to do, and how she's going to handle her new role.
I think it was somewhat predictable originally when Carl Hasty, the Speaker of the Assembly from the Bronx, of course, said that, we're not going to pursue, this whole idea of impeaching Governor Cuomo formally. But then it came back on. What's your sense of why? I heard a lot of, undercurrent of dissatisfaction with the idea of dropping it. After all, Democrats were, vehemently opposed to dropping the impeachment of President Trump after he left office. What's your sense now of why that happened? And is that going to ultimately play out and, frankly, distract the next governor somewhat, because that's going to make major headlines?
It's hard to say. It's if it the way that I see it is there is a lot of public pressure and pressure from his own members to at least release the report. There were members of the Judiciary Committee as well who who thought that they at least needed to release the report that showed their findings. It's not a sure bet that impeachment is even going to go forward. It's just sort of ending this investigation. There's so many other issues other than just the sexual harassment. There is, his book deal and what went into writing former Governor Cuomo's book deal, that when he was writing about his memoir about fighting the COVID crisis. There is the Mario M. Cuomo Bridge and, potential there of, rolling it out too fast, some shoddy workmanship, of covering up nursing home deaths. There's so many different other issues that the impeachment inquiry was looking at as well, that not just the sexual harassment, that people wanted to see what would come of that. So will that impact Kathy Hochul? It's hard to say. It doesn't directly impact her, certainly. If it plays out, it will be in the Assembly and then in the Senate. She doesn't necessarily have to get distracted by it. But that's if, the Assembly brings articles of impeachment. Carl Hastie has only promised to continue the investigation. Right. He hasn't promised that there will be articles brought.
Well, now we know when that happens, we can bring you back and we can talk about that. But, normally downstaters would immediately look at a governor from Buffalo and say, here we go, downstate, upstate conflicts. I thought it was a stroke of a genius to say that she was going to pick a person of color from downstate, and she ended up going with Senator Brian Benjamin as lieutenant governor. What do you think? I mean, he's got a record in criminal justice reform, which is certainly one of the many things on your list there, things that have to be dealt with. What do you think about her selection of Brian Benjamin?
Well, it certainly it makes political sense, at the very least. She is obviously looking forward already to her potential reelection, about balancing out her ticket. And Benjamin is not just balances things out geographically, he also in a way balances things out ideologically. He is
and ethnically as well,
and ethnically, is a black man from Harlem as opposed to a white woman from Buffalo. So it makes sense. It's a pretty balanced ticket, and he brings in some of that progressive sort of left wing credentials that a moderate like Kathy Hochul, who kind of famously was opposed to driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants when she was Erie County clerk, which is something that's come back to haunt her on numerous occasions. That she can say that she has Brian Benjamin, who has been a key proponent for a number of different criminal justice reforms. He said that he backs defunding the police. So, he comes in and he's this a more left-wing voice for her moderate voice, a downstate voice, a voice of color. And, that should, help her when she's seeking reelection. But it's, that's still a long way away. And we still need to see who's going to try to challenge her and who might try to challenge him in his own race.
Just to stick with the notion of criminal justice reform, which I've heard from numerous constituents and all different people, is about bail reform, that people understand why it was necessary, but they think that judges should be given greater discretion as to whether or not they impose bail or not, rather than have the rules dictated. Do you and my discussion with elected officials is mixed. Do you have a sense that it will be some say, don't touch it, it's fine as it is, and others say, yeah, maybe we can reform it? Do you think there is bail reform in our future in New York State?
It's in one of her first interviews since becoming governor with the New York Times. She was specifically asked about bail reform, and she Governor Hochul seemed to indicate that she sees room for potential reforms, potential tweaks. But whether that happens, I don't know. There have been reforms passed. There has been slight rollbacks to the original bail reform that was passed. I don't know if there is a appetite for it among the lawmakers. And, for a new governor who's looking to build bridges, as she says, I don't know if it's going to be an issue that she necessarily tries to push, considering it's, an issue that has already been rolled back slightly, but it's always possible. She is someone who's,
It's almost like the last thing she needs is to have that discussion be in the news when there's so much more going on. I have to tell you, as a New York State resident and a constituent, I was quite relieved, even though it was disappointing, to read soon after she became governor, she immediately released new numbers on COVID that were 12,000 different from what Governor Cuomo had left with. As I say, very disappointing that was the case, but maybe a sign of relief about that sort of thing. And I have to tell you, I felt the same way when she imposed mask mandates in the schools. I'm hoping that she will take a closer look at it and in an open-minded way, not to try and protect her political standing, but really help us all figure out how to really deal with this. You have a sense that that's at least that's what it appears she's going to be, right?
Well, yeah, I think she's coming into a lot of things with an open mind, and certainly she's been taking she's been making moves and kind of taking steps to ensure that she is seen differently than Cuomo. She hasn't really said his name, but people
really?
who are listening can.
I hadn't noticed that. Thank you for bringing that up.
She is, in her first public address, she did not mention him by name, but she did say several things, I'm disappointed with the way that the rent relief has been rolling out. I'm going to change our sexual harassment policy so that the trainings have to be in person so that you can't just click through it. Cuomo kind of famously was questioned about whether he actually did his sexual harassment training, which is currently done online. So, no, she's definitely trying to differentiate herself from Cuomo.
Right.
And I think that means coming in with an open mind and really making good on those promises of collaboration, whether that's bail reform for something maybe she's interested in revisiting, or, something else, or, COVID or anything like
Rebecca,
that.
we got to run. Thank you so much for joining us. Your expertise is much needed. One of the things we didn't talk about was the eviction and the eviction moratorium. We're going to do that on Bronx Talk this week. So we'll cover that as well. And we'll bring you back as things go on. Of course, you're just one of the most important reporters we have over there at City and State Magazine, cityandstatenewyork.com. And thank you so much for joining us, Rebecca Lewis.
Thanks for having me on.
Great. We'll take a short break. When we come back, an artist at City Island who you know, who you love, and he's got some new stuff that really is very interesting about Bronx people. Don't go away.